Guys, it's me, Halloween Dan, and today I'm just really quick, tiny little video because I just wanted to show you something I've been making. I think it's pretty cool. I think you'll like it, and yeah, I've done most of the processes so far, but yeah, so let's just show you what I've been making. So this is what I have been making. I've been making an obelisk, a cemetery obelisk. It's very rough and ready, very patchy, but I kind of like that look. This is the look on things I like to go for. If you have seen any of my past videos before where I've made tombstones, it's basically the same process. I've used, in this case, 2-inch thick foam. It's just insulation foam. You can get it from most DIY stores. I got some very basic architrave from work and glued it on at this point. I've done the whole bit where I carve lettering into, in this case, obelisk, but I've done it on my tombstones before. And so far I'm really pleased with it. It's taken a few days to put together. I've used all the same processes I've used before, using Gorilla Glue and toothpicks, handy tip, toothpicks to hold the foam together while the glue sets. It really does help it. And yeah, it's basically 2 sheets of foam, this 2x4x2 sheets of foam. It's what I had left from last year when I made tombstones, and I just basically, that's why this side and this side look so rough, because I had 2 larger pieces of foam, and then these are the offcuts. I just literally cut pieces and to fit the gap that was left. And then the only thing that's slightly different on this one compared to my tombstones is that I used a filler. It's just a wood filler actually. This one was kind of almost like a marshmallowy type filler, and I just filled in most of the gaps, all the gaps I wanted filled anyway. Gave it a very, very light sand because I like the rough look, and yeah, I'm quite happy with where we're up to so far. You can see I've cut some pretty deep holes into it, and there is a reason for that. And also, going back down here to what I've written on the side of it, it says, "Here lies cursed Lord Thad Medway. He didn't see the dragon. 1472 to 1502. This is the first tombstone I've ever created which actually includes the name of my haunt, which is Medway Manor. And this is going to be part of a story, basically, with Medway Manor's past, and who was the first. This Lord Thaddeus Medway was the first to settle here and build a manor house. And yeah, there's a bit more of a story to it than that, but yeah, this is the gist of where I'm up to so far. I think it's looking pretty cool. I like the look so far. It was pretty hard to do actually, because it's the first sort of 3-dimensional tombstone I've ever made. All the others are, you know, just literally a flat tombstone, and this is 3-dimensional, so you've got to think about it from lots of different angles. But I think it looks really good, and the reason I'm filming it now, I didn't want to show the whole process of putting it together, to be honest, because I've done it with the other tombstones, but this is it before it gets its coat of monster mud, which I'm going to try and make tomorrow, which is basically a latex grey paint mixed with, I'm using tile grout to give it a grittiness. I sometimes add a bit of sand as well, just to give it an extra layer of texture. And that not only does it protect it pretty well, but it gives it this awesome stone effect, which if you've seen any of my other videos, you will have already seen me do. So I don't think there's any real steadfast way of making monster mud. It's just whatever mixture works best for you. I last year used a mixture of fence paint. This one is Silver Cops, or Silver Corpse as I always think it actually says. Nice grey colour, great. It's exterior paint too, so it's very, very weather resistant. And then I add it to flexible, hygienic wall and floor tile grout. I got this from work. It was technically, it's out of date. It's out of date, can't be used. So I got this for free. And yeah, so I mix these together, and yeah, it usually works quite well. Sometimes I add a bit of sand just to get an extra bit of texture to it, but yeah, let's mix it up and see what kind of texture we've got. So I've just finished painting. Actually, I finished painting the second coat, and I think it looks pretty good. I love the stone effect that Monster Mud creates. It really is quite good. You can just about see the texture of the grit, the sand that I've added, and also, but mostly that tile grout, that you can really just see the texture coming through. It is a real stony look that it gives it, and it'll dry in a few moments or two, probably about another hour or so, and then I'll be able to add the details that I want. I never really bother painting the back properly because no one sees the back, and excuse the non-mitered corners here. I didn't have time for that. I think overall, generally, it looks pretty good. I'm hoping that although I haven't painted the inside, that won't matter. You won't see that necessarily because there is a plan for the inside. So anyway, but for now, I'm pretty pleased with the look, and once this is dry, it's on to weathering. So it is morning, a bit of a damp, dreary morning, but it goes brilliantly with this particular obelisk, and I think I'm pretty much finished. I'm pretty happy with the overall look. You can see now that the sort of effect I'm going for when I drip the acrylic paint over it, it just stains it basically. It stains it, and it stains it in this kind of a vertical way, like it's literally dripped down. I held it over the top and just let it drip all the way down. Like I've done before, I started with watered down black acrylic to sort of really stain. It kind of looks too fresh and too new, the grey, otherwise. This is, I don't really bother with the back, so I'll show you what it kind of starts looking like. That's how it kind of starts looking. Don't worry, this piece will not be seen by the public. This is the kind of after look. So it does make a huge difference on it. So you start with the black, then you move on to watered down green. I used 2 tones of green actually on this particular one, a darker green and a slightly lighter green. I went over it a couple of times as well, and then I did a watered down, a wash of brown. Don't use as much of that, but it just kind of, what happens with the brown is, you see it there, it just kind of like lands in these sort of areas and gives the whole thing a slightly more, I don't know, it just kind of gives it a bit more 3-dimension. The only thing I might do on this one that I never did on my other tombstones is give it a slight dry brushing with some white paint, because it just highlights all the sort of stones and things you kind of want to highlight, because it makes them look more like real stone. I have had a good test of it though, because someone came around yesterday and said, how come you've got a tombstone in your garden? And I said it's made out of foam. And they didn't believe me until they picked it up and then were like, oh yeah, so it is. So yeah, that's a good test. And then you can see, here we go, here lies cursed Lord Thad Medway. He didn't see the dragon, 1472 to 1502. So yeah, this whole thing ties in with a story I'm hoping to try and tell this year, adding to the story of Medway Manor, which is my haunt. The last thing to mention is I also highlighted all the cracks with black acrylic and highlighted all the lettering with black acrylic. I like to do the lettering, so I let the paint that's dripped down, so I did a final coat of green and brown, and then I did the highlighting whilst the paint was still wet, and then what happens is the paint kind of leaks out of the letters a bit and you get this kind of blurred look, and I kind of like that. I kind of think it looks less clean and precise. It looks more like it's been out in all weathers, which is the look I'm going for. But there is one more element to this obelisk, and you can see it. Here's something here that's sticking out from it, which I will show you when it gets dark. And here it is at night. So it's a bit it's really hard to film. It's hard to really particularly judge this on film. I've got my flash on, so it's not really how it will look in real life. But I think you can still appreciate what it is I'm trying to do here. The holes that I've cut into the foam now light up, because what I've got here, you can see it, is this really cool light I managed to get on Amazon, which is a blue light. It's not a rope light, it's an LED strip, and it's blue, it glows blue, and it's a very, very light blue. I'll just turn my flash off. This is what it looks like without any external light shining on it. It is actually quite intense. It's almost like a neon blue is the blue to describe it. And you can see, it's hard to see the pillar now because I've turned my light off, but you can see the cracks really well in the pillar, lit. Obviously when this is in my haunt, there will be other external lights shining up to sort of highlight the pillar, but you can really sort of appreciate what it is I'm trying to achieve here, what it is I'm trying to do. The reason there's so much of it still sticking out and it's not all up inside the obelisk is because what I'm hoping to try and do, I kind of cut into the soil with my handy dandy trowel here, which I don't really can see. I've cut into the grass and I've kind of pushed it into the soil. And the idea is I'm going to try and feed this around in the ground to create what are going to look like cracks in the ground, like something underneath the obelisk is trying to get back out onto the surface. It could possibly be Lord Thad. So I put my flash back on. You don't see the glow quite as well, but you can see what I mean about burying it into the grass. So literally, I'll show you now. You get your trowel, you lift the grass a little bit and push it down into the gap that you've created. This is completely waterproof, which is great, obviously what it needs to be outside. And yeah, I think the effect will look pretty good if you can create a sort of pretty cracked sort of look. I think it'll look really good. The obelisk itself is looking pretty awesome, I have to say. I really do like the way this has turned out, and I do like the blue light inside just sort of coming out, and yeah, I think this will do really, really well. So now in the blue light of the cracked earth where Lord Thad is emerging out on Halloween, I'll leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I say, I'm not calling this a tutorial. It's not a tutorial. I just kind of wanted to show you what I'd made this year. At some point I have got to repair my pillars and my other tombstones. There's a lot more to do yet, and I also want to add a few sort of finishing touches that I didn't get a chance to add to my pirate ship last year. So join me. Crafting season is only just beginning. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Keep it spooky. Bye.